The Digital Equipment Computer User Society presents this live recording from the 1985 Spring DECUS U.S. Symposium, held May 27th through the 31st. We take you to New Orleans, Louisiana, where the program is just now beginning. The following material is for informational purposes only, and is subject to change without notice. Neither DEC, the author, nor DECUS assume any responsibility for the material, its use, or applications.
Welcome to the FIDONET session this evening. I have one or two announcements to make just before we start the session. If you haven't heard already, there is a PC clinic being held in room 2206. It's going on right now, but it'll be going on until 8 o'clock, so you can go up there after this session if you'd like to. The people in attendance up there are some of the DEC engineers that you have probably seen and heard while you've been here at DECUS this week. So it's another opportunity for you to get some of your questions answered before the question and answer period session on Thursday, which generally I think that's an hour and a half session. That's usually pretty well booked up with questions. The line gets pretty long in that session. So this is one more opportunity. Also, some of you know it and some of you don't. If you have some diskettes with you, tomorrow the PC SIG suite, I've been doing that all week, saying that. The suite will be open tomorrow from 9 o'clock until 10:30, and then from noon until 4, and there is public domain software available on a rainbow up there that you can copy if you have diskettes. At 7 o'clock,
as many as you can get.
4.
4 should do it.
Yeah, 4.
Squeeze.
2 for FIDO. There's other ways to get FIDO here.
We'll go over that.
But yeah, he'll talk about that. But anyway, 4 minimum. Also this evening at 7:08, which means you got to rush after this session, maybe 7:10, there will be a drawing held. There's a raffle being held in that room for the Pro. The product is Synergy. For the Rainbow, the product is Overhead Express. For the DECmate, it is 2 public domain game diskettes. And then from the PSG group, the group that's running the bookstore in the exhibition, they've donated some products. There will be, for the Pro Sight, for the Rainbow, Symphony, and for the DECmate, Multiplan. In addition to that, I understand there will be maybe 10 diskettes, boxes of diskettes, raffled off. So you might want to run up there with a business card. Now they're starting to listen. Actually, I'm not going to tell you. No, 2206.
22 or 21?
2206.
Is that this building or Riverside? This building.
Why are you raising your hands? Maybe 6 diskettes. Oh, we're not doing any copying tonight, but the raffle is tonight. And the room is 2206 in this building. 7:08. Sometime right after 7 o'clock, they're going to give the opportunity of the people in this session to get up there.
And if you need business cards, my business cards are right up front.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready to start this session. I wanted to introduce to you Kurt Riesler. He got me into FIDO at the Anaheim Symposium. It was the best session I went to all week. Actually, it was a BOF. The room was packed. We were standing out in the halls trying to find out about this network and this BBS. I'm trying to find one. He works for Hardin Incorporated in Fairfax, Virginia.
Nope, Hadron.
Hardra?
Hadron.
Hadron.
You should see how some of the mail I get comes.
He's been involved with Rainbow since 1984, when he bought one at the Spring '84 DECUS Symposia in Cincinnati.
Everybody out of park.
That's right.
He brought up FIDO in
I'm a real shyster.
1984, October of '84, and has been heavily involved in FIDO development and is currently running 2 FIDO systems. He's also quite involved with DECUS, a volunteer with DECUS, very active member, and I'd like to present Kurt Riesler.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm sysop on 2 FIDOs, and I think you're going to have to kill the mic on that one, otherwise we're going to get feedback. This is a bad room. FIDO 74, the Bear's Den, and FIDO 483, Washer Road, which is the washing area, Rainbow. The FIDO 483 is running on equipment that was donated by DEC, completely, totally lock, stock, and barrel. What we're going to go over in this session, which is a little bit better organized than the Birds of a Feather session was in Anaheim, several points. What is FIDO? Are all FIDO systems the same? Can I use polyrazzmatazz or whatever with FIDO to get files? The big question, can I get the sources to FIDO? How can I get a FIDO of my own? Do I need to get a node number? How do I get a node number? What are the problems associated with FIDO, and how can I get help if I need it? Those are the most popular questions. There are a lot more. FIDO, what is it? Well, those of you who've logged in have seen this poor flattened dog. That didn't come out very well, but that's FIDO, of sorts. FIDO number 2, John Medill came up with that, and it's sort of become the network's logo. Not everyone uses it. Next question I always get is, did you write FIDO? No, I did not write FIDO. This is a picture of Tom Jennings, who wrote FIDO. This appeared in InfoWorld in August 1984, and this is where I actually learned of FIDO for the first time. I had seen it on LCG Kermit, and my response to it was, FIDO, what the hell is that? And never pursued it any further because there was a lot of files there, and at 1200 baud I didn't really feel like racking up my phone bill talking to Massachusetts. After I read the article, though, I ran up my first $300 phone bill. A little bit of history. FIDO started, as we now recognize it, in June of 1984. Tom Jennings in San Francisco decided it would be a neat thing to do. And so with a friend of his, John Medill in Baltimore, they set up this rough bulletin board network, FIDO 1, FIDO 2. Very, very simple software. It placed a call, it transferred the file, and that was it. That was the situation in June of 1984. It was going to be a little hobbyist thing, kind of a neat little toy. It wasn't going to go any further than that. Tom's got a full-time job. Bulletin boards are not his interest. MS-DOS is not his interest. This is the situation in October of 1984. We have 74 nodes. That's simplified. I got tired of drawing lines. We have 74 FIDO systems, all dialing each other directly to transfer mail. I'll explain that in a little bit. Obviously, at this point, so the next situation that came up were the idea of routers, where you would have a servicing node in a major city where there would be 5 or 6 would be collected by these particular host nodes and then disseminated back out. And this worked fine until May. May we hit 260 nodes, and we found out that Tom Jennings in his infinite wisdom never expected more than 250. We had a problem. So we stopped. We're now almost a formal network. We have now developed networks and regions. Let's just do it this way. It always seems to work better. If not, then we go to the one. Of course, I can't wander quite as far with this, so we're back to the lavalier. Never fails. So what we know is a situation where there are regions and nodes. And in the current situation, prior to the latest version, which was 10i, up until 2 days before I got here when 10j was released, situation each of the nets has got anywhere from 3 to 20 FIDOs located in it, and that each of the network node coordinators can issue his own node numbers. So now instead of being FIDO 74, I will now be FIDO 10J has been issued, and before anybody asks, yes, there's a version of 10J upstairs, but it's not complete in that the node list maintenance utilities are not there. The gentleman who is doing that is in the hospital, and they won't let him take his computer in with him, so it's going to wait. Of commands available to you. They allow you to change your user information, such as your name, city, password, width of your display, null padding if you need it. You can yell at the sysop, which a lot of other bulletin boards, they call it chat mode, but I'm sorry, when you've been running a bulletin board for a while and that thing starts to beep, it's yelling at you. Which means if I have a user upload something very interesting, very good, very public domain to my node, I can attach it out and send it out to 3 or 4 other people. And usually within a week, it's gone from, by a process of exponential expansion, don't correct me if it's wrong, I'll just make a fool of myself up here, everybody else has got it. And occasionally you get interesting people coming in, since one of the interesting things that happens is with the international nodes, we have got 6 in England, 2 in Sweden, 2 in Indonesia, and I think about 8 in Canada. And those are the ones that I know of. The people in Sweden can't use 1200 baud, so they dial in directly to your system at 300 baud, sometimes for 2 hours at a time. Think of that phone bill. I wasn't going to say that, but they do. It's your hardware money at work. So that's one way in which the files are transferred around, shipped between systems. They go up by way of the mail. Another way that it's done is simply by browsing around through various systems. I know I occasionally dial into Bruce's system to see what kind of new things have been left on the HootNet, which is run by the DEC Rainbow Engineering Group, so we do have some legitimacy. I dial into FIDO 27, which is also run by a DEC employee. He seems to get a lot of good stuff on his monstrous amounts of disk space. And also I dial into a lot of the IBM bulletin boards because, believe it or not, there's a lot of very good generic MS-DOS software out there that really screams on a rainbow. Such things as Fancy Font, which is what most of these slides were done with. That's public domain, that's free. It comes with 18 fonts. It comes with a font editor. If you don't like what you get, you can do your own. It makes your LA50 really sound bad as it screams and puts that out 1 row of dots at a time. But it is free, and it does work. Works very nicely. I'll get into some of the other public domain goodies that are living on the FIDONet. Another thing that makes FIDO unusual in terms of bulletin boards is the number of communications protocols that are offered for file transfers. If you've ever dialed into an RBBS PC and had enough patience to go through while it reboots itself and while it goes through the 6,000 messages in its message base, looking for the mail that you obviously don't have because you've never logged on it before, you'll notice that it only offers you X-modem as a transfer protocol, period. FIDO offers you X-modem, Modem 7, Telelink, Kermit, Raw ASCII, and all the ones that are starred are available as either checksum or CRC. So you can pretty much bet that just about any package you've got will talk to a FIDO, except for polyXfer. Sorry folks, that uses a proprietary protocol, and Tom Jennings is not about to put it in. Private joke. Now what do you do if you've got polyXfer, polycom, polyterm, poly whatever? What do you do? Aside from gnashing your teeth. Most of the Rainbow boards have got a assembly language program sitting there in assembly language called mboot.asm. It's about 100 lines, using the ASCII capture mode in your PolyXfer, Polycom, Polytransfer, I don't remember. You can download that, or if you don't have that, you can list it out, capture it, and then just type it back in. It's only 100 lines. It's pretty simple. Then using the M-assembler that comes with your Rainbow, you can assemble it, follow the simple instructions, you can dial back up, and then using X-Modem, you can download one of the available communications programs. The ones I would highly recommend are LC Term, which was written by Larry Campbell, late of DEC, recently back at DEC. This is a fantastic program with pop-up windows that gives you X-Modem, Modem 7, Kermit, raw ASCII, all of which in a very nice, neat package. There is DEC Mini, which is the DEC particular version of the Minitel program, which was written by Tom Jennings, who wrote FIDO, which means it's optimized for FIDO. That gives you all the protocols that are listed there. There is MS or RB Kermit, which is a full, honest-to-God Kermit implementation, complete with server mode. And those of you who have access to local area networks that are going to be packetizing stuff, don't try it with anything but Kermit. Kermit's the only thing that's going to put up with the long packet delays. But those are your communications programs. And if you've got an IBM PC and you don't want to admit it, well, sorry, M-Boot's not going to cut it for you. But I do have IBM versions of the Telelink program. I've also got Ortona versions, Sanyo versions, Trash, TRS Model 2000 versions. And the interesting thing is that FIDO runs on all of those, all of that hardware. It runs on all the IBM P clones, runs on the Rainbow, runs on the Ortona, runs on the Tandy 2000, and the interface, the user interface to all of these machines is identical. Unless they specifically tell you what it is you're working on, unless it's a Sanyo, you'll never know what it is you're using. If it's a Sanyo, it's obvious. It'll slow up. The more you use it, the slower it gets. Those things have real problems with their disk drives. Apparently every time it does a disk access, it slows up the clock. And since FIDO is clock-oriented for scheduling, imagine what that does to it. Ah, yes, the $100 question. How do I get FIDO? Well, first off, forget sources. Not available to anyone for any reason at any price. Tom Jennings has the only copy, and the reason that he can't give you the sources is really a valid one. As I said, he does have a full-time job. He works for Phoenix Software in Boston, wherever. And he lives in San Francisco. They tolerate him. But he used a lot of their proprietary libraries when he wrote FIDO. And for that reason, they won't let him release it, which is fine. We have a solution. We, the 360 FIDO sysops, are going to sit down and rewrite this thing so that it's completely in the public domain. If we can ever stop arguing about what language to write it in, who's going to manage it, what features are going to be in it, and why bother to do it in the first place. How do you get FIDO? If you're made out of money, if you're crazy, I can't put this slide up. We'll do it this way. You can send a lot of money to Tom Jennings at this address. And in about a month to 2 months to 3 months or 6 months, you'll get back 1 disk and 1 manual. Or, if you're impatient, you can order it from DECUS. Well, we can do that because they're us. No one's going to bark. If you've been looking for it here in the DECUS catalog, you won't find it because they lost the first copy of the submission. You'll find that there's only an RB101 in there. FIDO is RB102. What will you get for your $38? You'll get 1 floppy disk and an 86-page manual. Unfortunately, the 86-page manual is also on the floppy disk. So you can do that if you like, and you can probably get that within a day or 2. You can also go upstairs, get in line, and...
What version is DECUS stuff?
DECUS has got 10G, which will work.
What version is that?
We're up to 10J. We skipped quite a few in between. Or the way of choice is to download it from either a local node or a backbone node. These are just 5. When we get done here, we can do a yell out your city and state, and I'll yell back the number of a FIDO that's near you. These 5 have got the latest version online. They are open systems in that they will allow new users to download things from them. I don't have my other FIDO listed there because it's a restricted system. You can't do any downloading when you first log in. I like to find out who my users are, and there's a reason for it. I believe Rick's node is also a restricted node. And again, you can dial up and you can request access, but you can't get anything up or down immediately. Why do we do that? Why are we paranoid? Well, there's a very good reason for it. What you're doing here is you're laying yourself exposed to every idiot and imbecile in the world. Most of them are in the age of 10 to 14. Some of them are in their 30s and older. What will they do on your system? Well, as Tom Tempetus found out in San Francisco, they will put credit card numbers on your system. They will put non-public domain software on your system. Sometimes I wonder about whether these people aren't employees of these various places, because they'll upload it and then they'll come back 10 minutes later and look for it. And they don't find it, and they don't understand why. Well, if you remember the diagram of how FIDO is organized, most of us sysops, I think I can speak that as a rule, have FIDO configured in such a way that when you upload, it uploads to a file directory that you don't have any access to as a user. You can upload to it, but you can't download anything from it, and you can't even list what's in it. You don't even know it's there. So once or twice a week we go in and we look at all the garbage that's been uploaded to our systems, and we say, well, okay, here's a copy of WordStar, here's a copy of Blast, and here's the usual collection of Atari programs that seem to be coming from the collection of 14-year-olds, and here's the basic program that somebody warned me about. Nice little Trojan horse routine that goes in and deletes everything on your system. FIDO also keeps track of who's been downloading things. So, and if you're like me, you know who these people are, and you can sic the proper authorities on them. The reason I can do that is one of my users is with the FBI's task force that's investigating bulletin boards. I have a reason to keep mine clean. Same thing goes for messages. You can go in, you can kill them. Unfortunately, users can move the messages around pretty quickly. So what I do on my boards is that there is an application that you fill out, electronic application. I ask for a home number, an office number, and before I will validate you as a normal user, I'm going to call you up and find out who you are. And a lot of times it surprises a lot of the 35 and 40-year-olds that it's not some 15-year-old kid calling them, and that we're not playing games. FIDO is serious business. What else? What else do I have here? A few other things. What else comes down the line from FIDO? We have a weekly newsletter. It is assembled every Thursday and disseminated electronically out across the network to all the FIDO systems. I've got 2 copies of it with me, and I guess I'll just start them going, one on each side of the room. The reason for it? It's quite simple. It's a way of keeping the other 350 sysops informed of what's going on within FIDO, what's going on within public domain software, what's going on within a lot of the legal issues that we have to worry about, and just what kind of garbage is going on anyway. What are some of the advantages of being a FIDO sysop? Well, an interesting advantage developed recently. 2400 baud modems have suddenly cropped up. And a lot of us have been eyeing them thinking, wow, that's a way of cutting our phone bills in half even further, because it cuts our transmission rates down. And then we look at the prices and we go, well, I think I'll pay the phone bill for a while. Well, a unnamed company brought up a FIDO of their own and said, you know, this would be really neat if we got all these 360 raving lunatics to use our modems. So they made us a deal, the likes of which I will not mention, because DECUS says I can't, but we have a couple of local sysops in the Washington area who are dealers in computer hardware. Had to qualify that. And it's cheaper than they can get. And so the FIDO systems, most of the major ones, are converting to 2400 baud. There are some companies that are selling software. Microsoft, MS-DOS software, PC-DOS software, all sorts of software. And once a week we get barraged by FIDONet mail with advertisements for all the great deals and the great prices that they've got for us. If any of you have been trying to find the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in a rainbow-specific format, well, it seems like there's a FIDO in Maryland. Who's got it? $17 a copy, but I didn't say that. It's a lot of information that passes back and forth. It's an interesting way to meet people. I know I met Rick electronically, Bruce. How many other FIDO sysops are sitting out here besides? Great. I'm sure I'll recognize your names. I won't recognize your faces. But it's an interesting, growing network. And as it grows, it picks up in strength the way DECUS has over the past years. DEC is running currently one FIDO in the Rainbow Engineering Group, and a question. Is there anybody here from the Atlanta hotline? Nobody. Oh well.
You tried.
I tried. I've been talking with them for 3 months about setting up a FIDO of their own as a way of disseminating the patches and information. Because of the security levels within FIDO, it would be very easy to set it up so that the user passwords would be your access number, which they hand out. And because of the command controls that you've got within FIDO, you could remove the ability to change that password. And when your account expired, they just delete you. And there you've got a way of picking up the patches for your problems with DBase 3, DBase 2, Lotus, whatever. It's a lot faster than at the one session that I was at Monday morning. Someone had to wait, I believe, 3 months for a patch to Lotus, and he was pissed. And I don't blame him, especially since he was a self-employed CPA. That's money down the toilet as far as he's concerned. But anyway, I know there's a few DEC people here besides Bruce. If you could please pass the word back to the guys in Atlanta. It's not the guys that are answering the phones that don't want to do it. It's the management. They just see it as a way to lose control of things. And that's something that you don't have a problem with FIDO, is losing control. FIDO is a very tightly run system. It gives you 6 levels of access, from the lowest, which is a twit, to your disgraced user, which is what normally is how they come in as low-level access, your normal user, privileged user, extra privileged user, and your sysop. And by using those to tailor the command access and associate commands with various access levels, you can pretty much control the board any way you want it. You can make message or file areas accessible only to people of certain privilege or above. You can make commands available only to people of certain privilege and above. And by doing that, you can pretty much protect your board, set it up in any way you want to. And by the same token, the hotline could do that and set it up as an informational base. But I guess it'll take a little bit of hammering to do that. What else do you get? Well, you used to get the weekly node list update. The way this is going to be changed around is rather interesting. I think I may be the only one here who knows about it. You used to get a FIDO list and a node list. FIDO list contained the names of the sysops and the hours of operation. Node list contained the cities and phone numbers and such esoteric information as what their baud rates were and an estimated cost for connect. The reason I said to wait until we got the new node list utility is that it's now going to be a single, very large node list distribution, and the node list utility is going to break that out into a FIDO list and a node list. So what do you do with this stuff that you get? You have to worry about routing. You have to worry about who your locals are. All of that is done with the utilities that you get with FIDO, with the node list and the route gen utilities. You take your node list distribution, you run it through nodelist.exe, and it generates a nodelist.bbs. This is the actual node list file with the area codes proper for your area combination, and a route.bbs file which does the national routing. If you're part of a net, then you run route gen against a route.dat file, which takes maybe 3 or 4 hours to do the first time, After that, it takes a minute and a half if you've got a Winchester, 10 minutes if you're on floppies. And that generates the various routing files that you need for your various windows. It's all done automatically. Then you install it, you run FIDO, it's all done for you. It's a lot easier than it used to be when you had to go in and edit that stupid thing by hand. And in my area, we don't need the one extension on the phone numbers. 360 node numbers going in there and editing out one dash each time. And you can't really do it automatically because the international numbers need that 011 as a prefix. And we do have international numbers. A few of the cities. Where are they at? Liverpool, England, Plymouth, England, Newbury, England, Slough, England, Welling, England, Karlstad, Sweden. 2 of them in Karlstad. Both of them are DEC employees. We have in Indonesia, various cities around the U.S. and Canada, and we're half an hour into this. So, on a whole, what does FIDO get you? FIDO gives you local messages. It gives you an electronic message service. It gives you a source of public domain software. And that's as a user. If you're running a FIDO, it gives you a higher phone bill. It gives you a PC that you usually can't get at, because if you try to take it down to do something on your own, you start getting phone calls from people going, "Do you know that your machine isn't running? I can't get your phone to answer." So I hook my Osborne up to it. And it says, "Go away." You have problems in that you have to watch what's put on your board. You have to watch your users. After a while, you'll develop a good user population. You'll learn to recognize the signs, the obvious signs of the raving idiots who log in, and they do log in. You learn to put up with it. And you learn to put up with the phone and the machine running all night long, because it's interesting to watch it. My machine at home now runs 24 hours a day, except for when FidoNet's running or when I take it down to do mundane things like taxes and reports. One person hangs up, within 5 seconds there's somebody else on the board. And it's interesting to see where they're calling from. I get calls from all over the world, from California, from Hawaii, Indonesia, Virgin Islands, Sweden, Germany, France. Everybody wants the same thing: sources. Can't have it. But what do you find on FIDOs that's good in terms of public domain software? Well, you get Fancy Font. The latest version of Fancy Font is in 3 libraries: the executable library, the font library, and the sources. It's written in Lattice C. We had a guy pick up the copy off my board and modified it slightly, and he's now got it running on one of our Unix machines. It works perfectly. As you can see, it does a fairly nice job. Editors. Everybody knows WordStar, Perfect Writer, WordPerfect, God knows what else is out there. But there are some public domain editors that are beautiful. One of them was written by a DEC employee. If you're familiar with VAXs, you're familiar with the EDT editor that you see on a VAX. In the public domain, on FIDOs, is an editor called SEDT. The first cut of it ran only under CPM 86. Minor problem, there's another package called AME 86, which allows you to run CPM 86 programs under MS-DOS. Very nice, written by another DEC employee in Sweden. Next release of SEDT runs under MS-DOS without the need for AME 86. Both versions are on my board, and I would imagine you can get at least the MS-DOS version on the other boards. It is almost a complete implementation of EDT. The only major difference is you don't exit quite the same way, but it has all the documentation with it. There's another very good editor called DED. We call it DED. It stood for DEC Editor. Very fast, screen-oriented, very nice editor. It's more on the order of freeware. The author of the package asks that if you really like it, send him $5 or $25, and he'll let you know when there's going to be an update. And if you don't want to send him the $5 or the $25, that's fine too. Spread it around. It's a very good editor.
SED also will do flip style.
Yes.
Run
That's true. Yeah, I've got it pretty well. Ooh, we're running faster. Okay, I'll pick up the speed because I've got to blast out of here at 7 because I'm going to be lynched by my wife if I don't. As he said, SEDT also can do whip style editing, and there are versions to run on the VAX under VMS. Nice, powerful package. All of it's public domain. Communications packages, we mentioned LC Term. We mentioned DEC Mini. There is a package called Term by itself, which is a VT102 emulator. There are quite a few things out there. Games. You want games? There are some very good games out there. There's one called MONSTA, Monsta, which is an interesting little maze game. There is one called Kala, K-A-L-A-H, which was written by Brian Seitz, who's another FIDO sysop in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's a computerized version of a very ancient pit game, Pit and Stones game, which is a very, very, very nice program. And then there is a little monster called Hack. If you're familiar with Unix systems, you know what Rogue is. If you're familiar with Unix and Usenet, you've been watching people screaming for all the components for Hack. Hack is available. I'll have a copy upstairs in the suite fairly soon. It's big. You're going to need 256K in your machine to run it. That's free memory, 256K. You can run it on floppies if you want. It's a little slow. But Hack is a full implementation of Hack, and Hack is hacked up Rogue. It's more than Rogue. It's better than Rogue. It'll drive you crazy. There's a lot of garbage out there too, a lot of useless information, a lot of programs that won't work, a lot of programs that you can't do anything with. There are some utilities that you will want to get. One of them is LU86. You'll usually find it in a library form with a standalone version of it next to it. What is it? It's a library utility. It'll allow you to extract from, add to, or list the contents of libraries. The next thing you want to get is unsqueeze or NU unsqueeze, which is either NUSQ or USQ, depending on how they installed it. And that allows you to decompress files. You'll find that in order to save space on our systems, we squeeze files and we stick them into libraries. That way to transfer Monster, all of its files, all of its documentation, and all the notes files that go with it, you just move one library, one huge library. Take you 41 minutes to download it at 1200 baud. That's how big it is. Then you take it out of the library and you'll find that everything in the library is squeezed. And those are the files that have the Q in the middle of the file extension. EQE, CQM, DQC. You run unsqueeze against it, and lo and behold, you've lost more than half your disk space, because you usually get 50% compression out of these things. And you've got your executables, and away you go. There's really too many things to go into in the time allotted here, and I do want to leave some time here for questions. And what I'd also like, before we get to the questions, if you sysops that are here could just kind of go up to the microphone and mention your name and your node. You can do it too, Bruce. And then we can run real quickly into the questions. And I'm obvious, I'm real hard to spot here at DECUS. That's the main reason for wearing this.
I want to say that we have a FIDO upstairs, and we can demo it for you if you want to see it sometime tomorrow, tonight or tomorrow. Also, if you're fortunate enough to live in the Southern California area, the routing and networking that is done down there is all done at no cost. So your phone calls are all free if you happen to live in that area. In other words, you can send messages all the way to Europe at no cost. There's a FIDO users group in the Southern California area also. We meet once a month.
Vince Perriello, FIDO 491, Naugatuck, Connecticut.
Ron Elliott, FIDO 393, Bolingbrook, Illinois.
Would you folks be kind enough to give us your
Bruce Gibson, FIDO 367, Littleton, Mass.
Mike Mansfield, FIDO 90, Madison, Wisconsin.
Can you give your phone number also, your FIDO number?
Yes, area code 608-233-8449.
I'm Ricky Leopoulos. I'm FIDO sysop number 350 in San Diego, California, and it's area 619-488-2116.
And I, of course, am FIDO 74 and FIDO 483. And 483 is the number you want to call, and that's its number up there. And do we have any questions in the 11 minutes or so that are left
Please
for us?
come up to the microphone for your questions. One question, and then rotate to the back of the line.
Does FIDO support ringback so that you don't necessarily have to lose the voice?
No.
No.
Now, FIDO usually expects a dedicated line. The problem is that people are going to be calling you 24 hours a day with auto dialers, which is what happened to Byte Magazine's FIDO, if anybody's ever tried to call it. The phone company threatened to yank their phone out because people around the country are trying to get in at them.
The version of the FIDO document that I read told me that in order to get proper hang-up processes, I should use a modem that was sensitive to DTR. And before I had acquired the document or the version of FIDONet that I have, I had already purchased a Sigelman Mark 12. Is there any kind of a patch for that in any current release to allow you to do the command interrupt and explicitly tell it to hang up using the Hayes modem command protocol?
FIDO needs to be able to sense DTR, both for FIDONet mail, but there are hardware patches to your modem, which I believe the gentleman behind you is about ready to tell us about.
If you look in some of the back issues of the FIDO newsletter, one of the issues has a description of how to do that.
Do what I did down for
Exactly. You need to buy a transistor, and you have to get some resistors, and you have to cut edges and things like that. But it's like a one-page change. It's not too difficult.
Yeah, I seem to recall seeing that, and if I can find which issue it is, I'll post the instructions to the PCSig newsletter. I'll just pull that out.
My name's Dan Aldridge. I have a codex modem, and last time I checked, Kermit didn't support, or not Kermit, FIDO didn't support the codex modem. Is that changed?
I don't believe it has,
Okay.
but the easiest way to get it to change is send FIDO mail to Tom Jennings and say, help. And
Okay.
If it's an easy change, he'll do it.
Okay, great.
Just to expand on that last question, is there a list of supported modems? That's the first question. And the second one is it possible to run a private FIDO on a network where there would be DTR for it to sense, but there'd be no modem protocol because there'd be no modem?
You're talking hardwired?
Yes.
Hardwiring would be no problem.
Okay.
You would just tell it it's a Hayes, and it would just ignore it.
It doesn't expect any responses from a Hayes that would not be there?
I don't believe it would be a problem, let's put it that way. It has been hardwired for demonstration purposes, and other people have done it with PCs. I think you have to strap some of the pins together in your RS-232 line. That was also detailed in a newsletter about 3 weeks ago. So it's out there. There is a way to do it.
Is there some place to get these back issues of the newsletter?
Call up FIDO 483 and just suck them all down. What I'm going to do is get the issues out to the PC newsletter. We'll show them what happens when they make it the big one.
Fritz Howard, RIT. Could you comment on the costs involved in running a FIDO, not only the monetary but the time costs?
Time costs are not that much. It takes me about maybe an hour a night to go through the messages and check out the users that have been put up on the system. Costs, the main costs involve the kind of things that you're going to be doing normally if you're collecting software. The messages that go out, mail messages, longest calls are usually about 25 seconds. So you get charged for 1 minute connect time at 4 in the morning. That's the phone company's lowest rates. Or if you've got a local server, it doesn't cost you a thing.
Thank you.
Martin Gentry, RT11 Development, Deck Maynard. I got a question for you that you may have already answered, though I came in late. Is there any possibility that a portion of the sources, i.e. the non-proprietary parts, may be available? Because I really would like to get this up and running on a PDP-11 machine, and rather than reverse engineer it, which is what I've been planning, and Tom Jennings has kind of given his okay to, and I don't have the time for, is there any possibility that proprietary parts might be made available?
I think it's unlikely, but you can always send him a message and ask him.
How about documentation describing, for example, some of the internal structures?
The data structures are all in the data documentation.
Which I don't have because I don't have a machine that can run FIDO or even Kermit to download. Does anybody have hard copy of it? Okay, I'll pick it up later. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, you've got Kermit. You should be able to pull it in from somewhere. You could even get it from the LCG Market machine.
What was that?
You can download FIDO and all the documentation from lcg.kermit.
Okay, I'll try that.
Because Bernie's been keeping up with the current versions.
I didn't know we had documentation there. The only ones that I found in recent past, for example, on the Wakestar Kermit, FIDO 14 up in Melville, was in a squeeze form, and since I didn't have something that ran unsqueezed, it didn't do me much good.
All you have to do is ask somebody and they'll unsqueeze it for you. I've done that for people.
I did. Kevin Porter didn't have enough room on his disk for the unsqueezed.
The documentation is 86 pages long.
Okay.
There is no free lunch question. Who pays the cost of the local servers for their long distance calls?
Usually the local servers are either major corporations or companies that write it off their taxes, or they're companies that have 800 numbers, or they're digital and they bury it in the cost of the hardware.
Could I ask the gentleman from Bolingbrook, was it 393, to give his phone number?
Oh, yeah. It's on the list that's upstairs.
Oh.
Here it is right here.
Okay, thank you.
312-759-5402.
From what I understand, there will be a list of most, but not all, of the rainbow-oriented nodes appearing in the update.daily sometime before DECUS is over.
Where is the CD, by the way?
2206 is the PC SIG suite.
Okay. How much?
Tom Gray, Volt Alta Resources. I've been looking at reverse engineering Kermit for a VAX now for about 3 months, and given what you just said about the sources, FIDO, am I going to get bitten by Tom Jennings just for reverse engineering it? I mean, is the concept proprietary?
Oh, no. The concept is not proprietary. In fact, he has helped a lot of people put in the Telelink protocol into other things. There is a CPM version of FIDO, a very rough thing. And there are guys in the area who have things written in Turbo Pascal that look like FIDO.
So have the protocols changed between the I and the J release?
No. What changed between the I and the J release was a fix to some bugs that nobody found but me. I have a nasty habit of disclosing things like that.
Yeah, Phil Lewis. Typically, how much of your hard disk is it going to swallow?
FIDO itself and all of its control files costs you about 320K of space. Once the users get a hold of it and they start leaving messages and they start leaving files, you can watch it disappear really fast. The files are very small. FIDO 483 went from a 10 meg dedicated Winchester down to a free space of about 4.3 meg in a week and a half.
Dan Aldrich, could you give us like a reasonable configuration to start off a FIDO?
A DEC Rainbow is all you need. I started mine with a 1/4 meg of memory and 2 RX50s, and that was it. It's a little slow, it's a little noisy. If you've got a Winchester, it's better. The more memory you've got, it doesn't really need it. The latest version of FIDO runs in 122 KB. And it runs on a PC Junior, so I mean, God, if it can do that.
What kind of life can we expect with just a 2 floppy system? Like 6 months, a year, before we start having problems?
Yeah, change your diskettes quite often, vacuum it out quite often, and make sure you're on real good terms with your service people, because it's going to beat the heads on that machine pretty badly.
How many you've gone through?
How many have I gone through? First 3 months I went through 10 disk drives and 1 complete rebuild of my hardware. Now you got to remember mine was bought used, and there were some other problems too, but I went through a lot of hardware. They got to know me all the way through field service.
Jim Thompson, which protocol have you found is most efficient for downloading at 2400?
I have not used it at 2400 baud. At 1200 baud, the ideal is Telelink, because FIDO was designed for that. Unless I'm talking across a network or real long distance, I'll use Kermit, because Kermit is more bulletproof. It handles retransmits and data losses and packet delays a lot better. But they all work fairly well, except for, of course, raw ASCII. It's always amusing to watch some 12-year-old trying to download an executable that's been compressed in raw ASCII, and FIDO goes, not a text file. As I said, I'm real difficult to spot at DECUS, which is why I wear this. Believe it or not, I actually am management type. And Bruce is easy to spot because of his distinctive headgear. And the rest of us can be found around here and corner us between sessions and ask us questions. Not tonight, though. I've got a riverboat to catch. Are there any other questions?
Thank you very much, Kurt. Appreciate it.
This is the end of this cassette. Please advance the tape as far as possible for the next playing.